The goal of our evening, Katie, by the way, thank you, Katie, and congratulations on your coming wedding. Our purpose for this evening is to affirm the powerful role of parents in handing on the Catholic faith, to identify the essential practice of sharing faith in the Catholic home, to reflect upon the Catholic faith language. So you're also thinking, what is the Catholic faith language? So I have a suggestion that each of us speaks a faith language. We have a kind of a preference of how we approach God, how we understand God, and how we might share God with other people. So that's one of our goals this evening. And the final one is to develop the personal faith statement. What you're going to hear over and over through this presentation this evening, and as I mentioned as we were gathering, this is a new feature of our lives as a Catholic parish, and it has come out of our Parish Pastoral Council, and it is the goal that to empower us as Catholics to be able to, at least if we didn't share it with anybody else, to have in our minds and our hearts what is the important thing about being Catholic. Why does being Catholic, what does being Catholic mean to us? Back in 2012, a member of our Parish Pastoral Council, Victor Dracy, you might know him, his wife Camilla worked in our library. He was on the Parish Pastoral Council, and while we were setting the goals for Vision 2016, so this is back in 2012, he said, "Father, we don't need help in teaching the catechism to our kids. What we need is help in sharing our faith with them." So right away, I'm thinking, some of you might be saying, well, what's the difference? I thought the catechism was the faith. But I'm hoping in this evening that we might, all of us, consider again, well, what does it mean to believe? What is our Catholic faith? What is the power of faith? And how could we become more proficient, if you will, or effective in sharing the faith with our children? So in 2013, we announced this vision, Everyone Add One, and the goal was that we would turn all of our members into inviters. But to be an inviter of the faith to somebody who is not practicing the faith, you have to have a conviction of what the faith means to you. And so after 3 years of trying to help people come to some assurance about what does my faith mean to me and what do I think you would appreciate about my faith, and then making the invitation, we got the feedback that Catholics are not too keen on sharing their faith with other people. It's not part of our culture. It's not the way we were raised. It's not our understanding of it's not my job. That's Father's job. Let the church take care of that. Buy a billboard, do a mailing, do something. But I don't have to take responsibility for sharing my faith. And good thing, because I'm not sure what I would say to somebody. So this hesitancy or insecurity about sharing our faith came out to us by the time we got to 2016. So we are gearing up for Vision 2020. And now it's add one, holy, kind, and giving. Add one what? Add one step to holiness, kindness, and generosity in your life. That's the challenge for me, and that's why I said this would be one great little step. But that's a journey of 1,000 miles, they say, begins with one step. So we are trying to break down the Catholic faith and the Catholic culture and our Catholic life into small, achievable steps so that people like me and you, and I am more like you than you believe, people like me and you would not hesitate to take that one little step. I could do that. Mother Teresa, no, I'm never going to be Mother Teresa. You guys, I am never going to be Mother Teresa. However, I could maybe add a daily Mass to my monthly schedule. I could add one rosary a month to my life. I could do that. So one step, add one step, holy, kind, and giving. So underneath these visions of the future of our Catholic community, we have come to the conclusion that there are two building blocks that are essential if the church is going to survive in our culture. And I have a great study that I'm going to share with you this evening. And that is that small groups are important building blocks for the church. And, of course, the family, the third thing, family is the fundamental small group. So, you all have heard me and Mary Pat and everybody else who are standing. Why don't you join a small group? Why don't you get in the faith-sharing group? I'm not going to go to my neighbor's house and talk about God. That's creepy. That's too religious for me. That's too much. But what I'm saying to you now is, guess what? God has given you a small group, and they're at your breakfast table. I don't know if you eat breakfast together, but they're at your dinner table. Well, I don't know if you eat dinner together, but there it is. One small step. And so that the small group is an important building block to church, and two, faith sharing in the small group are essential to passing on the faith to the next generation. So, in this small group you have called a family, this art, this skill, this practice of sharing my faith. So you're saying, well, does that mean I have to memorize the catechism? No. The question that we ask you to reflect on, what is important to you about your Catholic faith? How does it help you make it through the next day? What is it about being Catholic that gives you confidence, it gives you strength, it gives you hope, it gives you courage? What is it about your Catholic faith, lived in the Catholic Church, that is important to you? That's the faith that I'm taught. That's the story that I want to encourage you. I want you to maybe get your 90-second elevator speech, because now the Marcoms people, I'm learning all this stuff. Marcom, that's marketing and communications. Now we just call it Marcom. The Marcom people are telling me that you got to have your 90-second speech. So when you get in the elevator and it's coming down on your head, by the time you get to the next floor, you've heard the message. What I'm asking you, encouraging you to do is to conceive of and be confident about your 90-second personal faith statement. What is important to me about being a Catholic that helps me in my daily life and that you want your kid to know? And that word kid, I know some people find it maybe offensive. I don't mean it offensive. Your children. What is it? If you could give your child one thought about being a Catholic, make it to their deathbed. Because that's what I'm talking about tonight. I'm not talking about getting into a good college. I'm not talking about getting a scholarship. I'm not talking about making the U.S. Olympic team for dancing or whatever, skating. I'm talking about dying. Dying as a full human being in faith. That's what we're talking about tonight, sisters and brothers. So is there, and I know there is. Well, I'm hoping there is. But if there isn't, today is that one step. So maybe tonight what we're going to conceive of is the thing in your heart that might be the nugget of faith that you could share with your child that will help them die peacefully, joyfully. Help them endure whatever tragedy, whatever difficulty, whatever joy comes into their life. What is the one thing that you have received from God through your faith in the Catholic Church that would give them a hand in their difficult thing? So, and I am not alone in this. I have been joined by Dr. Christopher Smith and Dr. Justin Bartas. They are from Notre Dame in Indiana. At least you know the football team. They began in 2002. They interviewed over 3,000 teens and their parents. So we're talking about 13, 14, 15. And they followed those same teens until they were 25 years of age. So for 10 years, they followed these people. And what they were, and this was all religions. So this is Buddhists, Hindus, Jews, Catholics, evangelicals, Mormons, Buddhists. Maybe I said Buddhists already. Okay, it's all of them. And so they were examining these kids on what is their understanding of their faith and what is their attachment and their practice to the faith. And then they interviewed their parents. And they asked their parents the same kind of questions. So they identified three groups of teens. Those who were not engaged in church life at all, or religious life at all, so if they were Buddhists, Hindus, Islam, Muslims, Catholics, Christians, so there was 30% of the kids that were not involved at all. 30% of the kids were kind of lukewarm, they're kind of somewhere in the beginning. And 30% of the kids were really dedicated. Okay? So, of course, they interviewed the parents, and they wanted to find out what was going on in those households, and they interviewed the kids. So, what is it about your life in your home that is producing this fidelity? So they were really interested in that top 30%. So then they interviewed the parents, and they started to identify some characteristics and some traits of the Catholic or of the home that was effectively passing on the faith to the children. So that's what these people did. So what influenced or contributed to their religious practice? And they produced a book called Soul Searching. And then they produced another one called Souls in Transition. And now they have come up with, because they kept interviewing these people for 10 years, now they have what they call emerging adults. These are all new words to me. That's like 23, 24, 25-year-olds. That's called an emerging adult. And so they now have a third book on this study. And so they have found, now this is great, these kids, the kids that were actively involved and engaged in their faith at 13, now they are seeing which ones of them are still active as 23, 24, and 25-year-olds 10 years later. And I'm thinking it's fascinating. I think we probably all have known this, but it's interesting to see the statistics. It is overwhelming. It is overwhelming. So, these kids from 13 to 23, they've interviewed their parents, they interviewed them, they followed their practice. In the top 30% of young people who are actively practicing their faith, it doesn't matter. Oh, by the way, Catholics came in number 6 out of 8. Meaning that the success rate of Catholic parents in producing actively practicing Catholic adults, we were number 6 out of 8. They were so stunned that they put a special chapter in the book about us. Because really, look, we Catholic school, Catholic high school, Catholic college. I mean, we really take this stuff seriously. And for us to have such a miserable effect, by the way, who was number 1? LDS, Mormons. Latter-day Saints, number 1. Number 1 effective in the parents handing on the faith to their children in practice after 10 years. So here are the 3 traits, and they are in order. You see it in reverse order. Number 3, parents who said and believed that their faith is extremely important in their personal life. So they interviewed these parents of the kids that were actively involved, and then the ones that were actively worshiping and practicing their faith 10 years later. And their parents were the ones who said that my faith is extremely important to me in my personal life. That's why the question, what is it about your Catholic faith that gives you meaning? Number 2, parents attended religious services weekly. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We kind of all got that, right? And 3, the number one answer. Now, this one is fascinating. This number 1 answer was in the 75 percentile. So that means that in the kids who were celebrating and practicing their faith, whatever religion it was, at 25 years of age, the number 1, when they what did they call that? They sifted it all out for economic status, boys, girls, whatever the case, all of it. Race, ethnicity, they took all that stuff out. The number 1 predictive behavior that in the home that produced children who were practicing their faith at 25 years of age was parents talked about religion and faith in the home more than once a week. I know we have various levels of practicing of the faith right here in our confirmation parents. So we have probably 30% of you who don't practice the faith at all. You you send your kids to PSR and you want them to be confirmed, fine. But you are not practicing the faith. Then there's probably 30% of you who are, you occasionally are practicing the faith. So, I mean, attending Mass, maybe. I think now, if you go to Mass more than once a month, that qualifies you as practicing the faith. But you can see that would be in the center group. And then we have that 30% who are, weekly Mass. It's just part of their culture, their family. What I would ask you in your own mind, because of course we're not taking any surveys here, of those of you that come to Mass every Sunday, and that this is really an important part of your life, is this true? Did your parents talk about religion and spirituality in your home at least once a week? Did your parents attend religious services every week? Okay. And did your parents did you understand and know that your parents' faith was important to them in their life? Now, if you're sitting there and you say, I did not know that my parents' faith was important to them, we did not attend Mass on a regular basis, and my parents never talked about religion in the home, and the fact is, and I don't practice the faith either. So you could confirm the study for me. I'm not going to ask you about that, but just think about that. And what do you want for your kids? So I said, who dances 5 nights a week? What does a parent who has their child in dance or basketball or soccer or hockey or whatever it is, 5 nights a week, what is your hope to get out of that for your child? What are you trying to build into their life through that? That's all I'm saying. What I'm asking is, what do you hope for your children spiritually and religiously? Can you see where the incongruence in our lives is? We don't spend even an hour a week. It's everything we can do to get them to come to confirmation class. They fight me and everything. I know your lives, and I know my own family life, so I hope you're not hearing anything. But what is the priority that our children are learning from us by our behavior, not by our conversation at the dinner table, by our practice of the faith? So this is phenomenal. So what are we creating? The Catechism of the Catholic Church tells us that we have got the obligation to create a Catholic home where tenderness, forgiveness, respect, fidelity, and disinterested service are the rule. This requires what the Catechism calls apprenticeship. So, as you know, Jesus had his disciples. That was the master disciple set up back in 2,000 years ago, was the way people were formed into life. And so what the church is encouraging all of us as Catholics and parents is that we would set up an apprenticeship in our home, and not for becoming a dance expert or a football expert, but to become a religious Catholic expert. And you are the masters, and your children are the disciples. So we call this the domestic church, the church of the home. So this whole conversation this evening is encouraging you with me to see how we might build a more Catholic home in which our children might assimilate our Catholic values, our Catholic faith, so that they could grow and die and confront the difficulties of life and the joys of life as a Catholic, and they might find meaning in it. In your packet, you have the first handout, and it's the silent tragedy affecting our teens today, our children today. Okay? And this is a thing called emotional unavailability. Emotional unavailability. So I think in my day we talked about quality time versus quantity time, right? Because we're all going in 60 different directions. So we wanted to make sure that when we had time together, it was quality time. This article, actually our principal put this out maybe on the Facebook page. It's not a particularly religious article, but it is a family systems approach, and it's not very long, but I think it's very helpful. We had a meeting not too long ago in which the parents and the children were meeting to talk, and several of the parents, when conversation got kind of slow, walking around, you can see taking their cell phone out. So there, in front of the children, the parents are checking the emails. This evening, let's talk about what is the culture in your home, and could it just take one little step toward being a Catholic, more Catholic culture. Okay. All right. The domestic home, domestic church. How could you become the pastors of the domestic church? So, and I'm meaning that in that way. I know it's challenging for me to be the pastor of the universal church here, but the invitation is for you to become the pastors of the domestic church in which you live. So I hope that article will be helpful to you. The second piece, I believe, on your packet is this Strong Catholic Families, Strong Catholic Youth. This study that I'm telling you about from Notre Dame is detailed in that packet. So I have even noticed some of you are kind of maybe getting a little drowsy on me, or fine. If you go home and read that packet, you probably will get more out of it than this talk this evening. This packet is informative, one, because it reveals the study, it reveals the effective role of parents in handing on the faith, and then it even gives you a little questionnaire, and it says, how are we doing on building a Catholic home? So you can take the questionnaire, and then it can say, okay, are you happy with the way your answers are in this thing, or would you like to change? And remember, my little message is one little step. There's a possibility to take one small step in each category of building a Catholic home. It doesn't end there. Then it tells you, here are some characteristics, some practices, some things that you might employ in your home that could deepen the Catholic culture and the religious culture in helping you to hand on the faith. It doesn't end there. Then it has the back page, which is probably even the best, is the resources. Because I know there are many resources online and in print that can help you in if you find this to be a good idea. So what is a Catholic home? A domestic church. A Catholic home is a concrete experience of communion, of life and love, which is God. Again, these are difficult things to say. That communion of life and love, that is the definition of marriage in the Catholic Church. So for those of you who are married, please know your marriage is the nuclear plant that is generating this Catholic faith and life in the center of your home. So a Catholic home is a concrete experience for your children of communion of life and love. So it is shared life. So now these are some of the temptations that we have in the modern life, and I'm sure you all experienced them. I know I did in my family life. To a shared life. So I just want you to think for a minute about what does it mean to share life, especially in your home, and I would say particularly in your marriage because you are the parents. So a shared life. A Catholic home is a concrete experience of communion, which is of life and love. The temptation is to shared space rather than shared life. So I have a picture of a boat marina up here. So I don't know if you in the back can see that. But you know how the slips in a marina, the boats are very close to each other. However, they have a pretty sturdy, and they even put bumpers, those of you that own boats, they hang bumpers over the sides of the boats so that the boats never come into contact with each other. They're sharing space and very small quarters, but they are not interacting. They are not intersecting. So shared space versus shared life. And this is a temptation for all of us, but just know that you have a companionship in this. A Catholic home is a congregate spirit of community, life, and love. How about another temptation is to shared busyness. That is, and this bottom picture is a little gross, but that is a beehive, and those are actually bees, I guess, with their butts sticking out at us, or I don't know, maybe it's their heads. But the fact of the matter is that they are, a beehive is a very busy place. Everybody has their job, the queen and the drones and all that kind of stuff. They're making honey and everything like that. But you see how they are sharing very close quarters and a lot of busyness, but they are separated from one another by the honeycomb of the hive. So again, is it shared life or shared busyness? Is it shared life or just shared space? We are occupants. Here's a third one. And sisters and brothers, we had 2 suicides of young people in our parish this year. January 1st and then this past August. And in both cases, the parents were horrified. Well, they were devastated. But the parents were horrified for another reason, is because they had absolutely no indication that their child was suffering. I mean, the kid was there, he was at dinner, he was at church. So this is the next temptation that I'm saying, is to hide from one another in plain sight. So although I see you, you're sharing my space, you're sharing my work and my busyness, you're sharing all of it, but you're not sharing yourself. You're not sharing yourself. We have a crisis in our families, we have a crisis in our society, and we have, God has an answer for us. No, God cannot stop young people from killing themselves. However, God does have a call and a mission to all of us, and that is that we are called to share life. So it is not about privacy. That's our culture. Our culture is all about privacy. It's my body, it's my life, it's my time, it's my thing, And I don't have to share it with you. As a matter of fact, if you would just stay out of my business, I'll stay out of your business. So we have this mutual coexistence. It's kind of like détente, between the Soviets and that's showing my age. Okay, so if a Catholic faith, so these people in your packet of a Catholic, if Catholic faith is not being handed on in the home by parents sharing faith, it is most often does not happen by any other means attempted. So this is what this studying is saying. So if you went to religious class, if you brought your children to religious class, if you brought your children to religious sacraments, and you did not share faith with them in the home, there is not an appreciable effect of them becoming practicing Catholics. That's how important sharing your faith in your home is. I don't know how many people I've had over the last 30 years said, Father, can you believe this? 16 years of Catholic education. And not one of my kids, I got 7 kids, not one of them goes to church. I said, I didn't have an answer. I think I have an answer. So what parents cannot do is they cannot outsource faith sharing. So you cannot send your kids to Catholic religion class as a substitute for you sharing your Catholic faith with them. I think that's the insight. So I don't want to say, we say this to the kids all the time. If you don't want to be confirmed, don't be confirmed. No, I'm sure you parents are, oh God, I can't believe they said that. I'm trying to get this kid to be confirmed. But the fact is that if we are not affirming the importance of our Catholic faith for ourselves and sharing that with our children on a regular basis, then making them make their first communion, making them make their confirmation, does not contribute to them becoming practicing Catholics. And so that's why I say, what do you want for your kids? Do you want for your kids to check, 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 check? I did everything I was supposed to do for you as a kid. Now you're 18, you're on your own. I don't care what you do. No, I want you to die in the loving arms of your Savior, in the hand of the church. That's what I'm preparing you for. I'm not preparing you for confirmation. I'm preparing you for heaven. That's why I brought you to baptism. That's why I'm bringing you to Holy Communion. And that's why I'm bringing you to confirmation, because I want you to walk with me by my hand into heaven. And we are going to celebrate and enjoy eternal life. That's our goal, folks. 50 years from now, we're all going to be the same age, right? Eternal. But the question is who's going to be there? Who's going to be there if we are not sharing? So share the faith. Share the faith. So I'm realizing that this is uncomfortable for parents. It's uncomfortable for me as a Catholic. So we're hoping tonight, parents who say they believe in the faith, parents attend religious service weekend, and parents who talk about faith in the home. Please just note these three things. And so parents who say the faith is important to them, extremely important to them in their life, that might be a challenge for all of us, right? What is the faith? Faith as membership, belonging. I baptized you as a Catholic. I sent you to Catholic school. I made you a member of the church. That is one understanding of faith. And I'm thinking that many of our parents, now I'm going to, maybe many of your grandparents, because my parents' generation, this was their understanding of faith, passing on the faith. I baptized you, and I sent you to Catholic school, and I made you Catholic. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that statement. However, we're going to see that it's incomplete, especially in this generation. The second is, many of you maybe have become Catholic at the Easter Vigil, so you made a profession of faith. So we stood you up here and said, all right, hi, what's your name? Ed Estock, and what do you want? Well, I believe everything that the Catholic Church teaches, believes, and professes to be revealed by God. We call that making a profession of faith. Everything that the Catholic Church teaches and believes and is revealed by God. So that's another understanding of faith. It's the intellectual knowledge, it's the catechism. Okay? It's not a wrong answer, but it is incomplete in this story. Finally, faith as a central coordinating principle and the priority in life, which brings purpose, meaning, and strength. We had this Bible study. 600 people signed up for the Bible study. And I've been learning a lot, and everybody else, it seems, is we have come to understand what is the faith of Abraham. He is our father of faith. And all of a sudden, we're saying, he believed that God was trustworthy. So he believed that he could trust God to be faithful to his promises. He believed that God was extending his hand and that he was going to take God's hand. No matter what happened in life, he believed. That is a guiding principle of faith. We cannot overemphasize the importance of connecting in the Catholic family. Okay. And thanks for putting up with that. Parents attending a religious service at least weekly or more, are you celebrating the faith? I don't think I need to beat up on anyone about that, but that is, they are not going to get it if you are not helping yourself. What is faith? Dear baby Jesus, this is Will Ferrell again. Let Huber pitch perfect. Let the outfield be awake. Let the ump call a fair strike zone. And please, one last thing, let Joe Buck be sick. When do you resort to religious language in your family? And I know we do it here. Oh, let's all say a prayer for the Indians, and whatever the case may be. What is the sincerity and the significance of our faith? Do we have actual faith? Or are we kind of practicing some, so how do you share your faith? So what is your faith, and how do you share it with in your family and in front of your kids. This study found out, too, is that those of you that have teenagers, obviously you're sitting here because you have a 13 or 14-year-old, they said one of the biggest deceptions for Catholic parents or for religious parents is that their teenagers give them the impression that they don't respect them, they don't like them, they don't want to listen to them, they don't want to have anything to do with them. Now, I don't know if any of you have teenagers like that, but the fact of the matter is that's not uncommon, as we all know, but the fact is it's a lie. Even those kids who said that stuff to their parents were watching them like a hawk. And when they got to be 25 years of age, they admitted that they never took their eyes off their parents. Even though they laughed at you, even though they made you feel like they didn't listen to you, please don't ever despair of the admiration and the respect that your parents have, or your children have for you. They are watching you, and what this study is showing, they are imitating you. And you probably know this in your own life. You know, you've seen those commercials now, I become my dad, you know, you pull your pants up, and you start saying these funny things. You know, it happens to us. We don't even know it's happening, but it is happening. So please do not despair with a cantankerous and a disagreeable teenager. They are watching you. And there is no more important influence in their lives, religiously and otherwise, than you. Therefore, the challenge for you and me as adults is to live our faith in front of them. I don't know if you all had parents who got romantic in front of you. It used to drive me nuts. Like, oh, you know, my dad would go over and hold my mother's hand, give her a kiss, come up behind her and, you know, dance or something in the kitchen. It would drive me nuts. But that was my immaturity. But why I learned mountains from that. They are watching you, and we need to have the courage to live our faith in front of them. That's that apprenticeship approach to life. So what do parents believe? What do you love about your Catholic faith lived in the Catholic Church? What I'm hoping is now with the next exercise is that we are going to help you to identify what it is that you love about your Catholic Church. Because what I'm finding out from Catholics is, I don't know. I'm not sure. And so we have a little exercise that we'd like you to participate in. We have constructed the things so that you can write on the hymnal in front of you. So you're going to need something hard to write on. And you're going to need that pencil or pen. Okay. Good cooperation. And I'm sure by now you're saying, oh, this guy's a little loopy. I'm really excited about this. I really think this will be helpful to you in your mission as parents. I will be open to your criticism of me when this is over, so please don't hesitate to let me know. What you have in front of you is a 24, I don't know how many, 28? 28 question, little question. Don't overread it. This is not your tax report. Okay? I want you to just respond as you are feeling. Okay? And on this document, there's a line in front of each one, and so you can answer, if you would, +2, +1, -1, or -2. +2 is I strongly agree, +1 is I agree, -1 is I disagree, and -2 is I strongly disagree. If you would just give it a cursory reading, of course nobody else is going to know what your answers are, so don't be afraid, and don't overstudy it, but just go ahead and fill it out. It should take you, I think it takes about 3 minutes if you're approaching it in the right way. This is if you take the right side of your paper and fold it over, you'll see that there's a score sheet on the back. So you can crease it, if you will, so that you can transfer your answers. And you have to transfer plus or minus. You have to transfer them into the boxes on the back side. And then you are going to add those answers from left to right on the score sheet. And there's a blank box called total. And you're going to put the total. Now, I realize this is advanced math, so you got to add negative and numbers and positive numbers to come up with a total. Is anybody confused by what I'm... Great theologians and educational psychologists and other people who have contributed to my approach called Catholic Faith Languages. It is, maybe some of you are familiar with learning styles. Some of you may be familiar with models of the church. Avery Dulles, a great Jesuit, cardinal of the church, he came up with the models of the church. Other people have come up with the learning styles from the educational world. Other people have come up with stages of faith development. Others have come up with stages of moral development. So, there's no end to these people's ability to study us and analyze us. What you have here, when you total your scores across from left to right, you're going to get a total. My experience has been, and again, I'm open to your feedback on this, that you are going to have possibly, you are going to have one style that is the highest score. Some of you might have a +8 in one category. Most likely, and most people that take this, they end up with 2 that are just below that. So maybe, you have something that's a +4, and then you're going to have 2 or even 3 that are just below it. Okay? What I'm suggesting to you, and why is this important, is because what is it about your Catholic faith that you love and that you would like to pass on to your children? That's where this is going. What I'm hoping is to help you to identify where you sit in the Catholic Church. Okay? Am I moving too fast for people? Are you done and ready to go on the next thing? Okay. Let me tell you about what I have come to call our Catholic faith languages. You have a page in your packet that has these 7 Catholic faith languages detailed. And they are, as you've seen on your score, they are thinking, worshiping, holiness, morality, devotion, community, and service. So, by taking this simple discerner, and it is not perfect, so if there's any psychometric doctors and psychometrics out there, forgive me. It is simply a suggestion to you where you might be most comfortable in your Catholic faith, in your Catholic practice. So, a thinking person might be very, very dedicated to faith as catechism. Faith as the homily at Mass. Okay? Worshipping people. Most of us, I think, do you know that 80% of the people who come to Mass on Sunday, so 80% of the people who come to Mass on Sunday, that's the only connection they have, or contact they have with the Catholic Church, is worship. Worship. So you might be, obviously, a lot of us might be worship Catholics, holiness Catholics. These are the folks who seek a deeper sense of the connection with God. So not so much about ideas, but about prayer and communion and sacrament. Morality. These folks are very comfortable with, just tell me what the rules are, Father. Give me the 10 Commandments. Give me the capital sins. If I never feel better and closer to God until I've gone to confession. Or maybe I don't go to church anymore because I didn't want to go to confession. That'd be the same. You can see the same person could be a morality Catholic, devotional Catholic, people that are dedicated to and inspired by community Catholics. These are people who are most comfortable about their Catholic faith and enthused about their Catholic faith because it has, when I get the whole family together. We belong to the parish that my grandparents belong to, my parents belong to, and it is the biggest fulfillment for me is to be in church with my family, with my friends. It's important to me to have friends in the Catholic Church, in the community. And finally, service. These people are dedicated to what you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. These are the people that sit around and say, you know what, I'm not so much for all these people, going to church, and, they know the priest's name, and blah, 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 blah. I think these people that are out helping the poor, Mother Teresa, Pope Francis, those are my kind of Catholics. Those are my kind of Christians. So this is not one is better than the other. It is what might be your preference. And so you might be surprised how you came out on the test. What I would ask you to, though, is to consider, and why is this important to consider? Because I'm thinking that you might be able to communicate to your children what is most important to you about your Catholic faith by considering this little test that you took. And you might say, oh, that's interesting, that is true. I'm really most inspired by the preaching of the church. I'm most inspired by the catechism of the church. I'm most inspired by the Bible study of the church. I'm most inspired by the social justice and the service and the community of the church. Okay? I would say that those of you that maybe are really dedicated to Catholic education, I want my kids to have a Catholic education. That probably is a community mentality. So, on your paper, you have the descriptions of these 7 languages. And in those descriptions, you might want to go and consider the language that you have identified with. And in that little description, you might find some words, some ideas, some inspiration for your personal faith statement, your 90-second elevator speech on how you might communicate with your children on this occasion, with your teenager, on what is important to you about your Catholic faith and what you want them to know as they go off into their adult Catholic life. I realize for some this is going to be a great challenge because maybe you hadn't thought about what's important to me about my Catholic faith. Well, I don't know. What you have to know, we're doing this with your confirmation candidates. I have resolved myself from my work with the Parish Pastoral Council, my role as a pastor in the church. I'm refusing to allow a child to walk through the the confirmation line and not be able to tell me one thing that is important to him or her about their Catholic faith. So I don't want them to not only know what the Catholic Church believes, teaches, and professes to be revealed by God, I want to know what the heck does it matter to you in your 14-year-old life. Can you come up with one thing that you take strength with, courage with in the Catholic Church as it has been presented to you? So, as you know, we have brought you together with parents and children in the confirmation program. We've said, talk about your faith experience in the service project. We're going to bring them together again with their sponsors in January and February, and we're going to ask the sponsors. Can you imagine? The sponsor probably didn't realize they were in for this. We're going to ask the sponsor to figure out what is important to you about your Catholic faith that you want to share with this confirmation kid. And the confirmation kid is going to be challenged to share with their sponsor what is important. Katie tells me they just did this workshop on Monday night with the PSR kids. The answers these kids came up with was edifying. So you are doing a wonderful job. However, I just want to emphasize with you and join me. Let's become more articulate in sharing what our love of the faith is. Why does it make any difference to all of you? Why does it make any difference to me? And I know I keep bringing up these tragic moments, but sisters and brothers, this is all leading. There is no way out of here alive. But our young people are desperately isolated. They are hiding from each other. They are hiding from their parents. They are not feeling confident in sharing life with others. They don't trust others. They are very isolated and insecure. And I'm hoping that by our ministry with them, we can help them to find that nugget, find that truth, find God that will help them to express what is, and to know in their minds what is important about God in their life. Can you express in the words the importance of your Catholic faith? That's my hope for this evening, and that's the last thing I want to talk with you about, and I really appreciate your attention this evening. It is your personal faith statement. Having reflected upon what is your preference, maybe, what is your flavor of Catholic spirituality in the Catholic faith languages, I'm going to ask you this evening, and I'm going to give you some help on the handout that you have there on what is a personal faith statement. And as we go through this, there's 5 steps to the personal faith statement. So I'm drawing you back to the opening question that we had with our opening reflection. What is it about your Catholic faith that you love, that matters to you? That's the question. And maybe with the help of your Catholic faith language, you might join me in composing your 90-second elevator speech, if you want to call it that, your personal faith statement. It would be really not important to me if you actually shared this with somebody. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing to me this evening is if each of us would answer the question for ourselves. What is important to me about my Catholic faith lived in the church in my daily life, in my human life, in my family life? So, now, according to the study, the most important thing you can do for your children is to share that statement with them. And not just once, but as the study said, how about weekly? How can you bring your faith, your value of faith, to weekly dinner? Well, maybe there's another little step. Maybe we could start having family dinner. They tell me this is a lost art. So maybe we could start having Catholic dinner or family dinner once a week. And at the family dinner, how creative could you become in expressing the importance of your faith, in how it has affected you and helped you in work, in politics, in marriage, in dealing with your parents as they are aging? You know, it seems to me that we do a lot of talking in front of our kids about all that stuff. But I'm not sure that we interpret all that stuff through the lens of faith. So I would ask you maybe to look at the topics that you discuss with your kids or in front of your kids. And to what extent and how often do you put God's perspective, God's reality, God's life? So, well, maybe this is God's will for us right now. You know, I was talking to my mom about how is she feeling about the end of her life? Or I was talking to Mom about how is she feeling about the death of my dad? You know, there are so many. My boss was beating me up at work today. And, I was thinking, boy, I know how Jesus felt. I just don't know that these are the, what we say is, And so we kind of give them the cultural interpretation of everything that's happening in our life. This is an opportunity to bring your faith to life. And so what are the... so first of all, we want to maybe begin with the end in mind. As I want you to think about, on this occasion, to think about your teenager. That they are your partner in conversation. Okay? So we can, you can maybe answer that question. Number 4 is my teenager, who is preparing for confirmation. So maybe that's your target audience. However, the first step would be to, who am I as a believer? So what is my identity as a believer in the church? So, my personal faith statement. As a Roman Catholic priest ordained for 33 years, who is particularly convinced by, enthused by, and excited about the teaching of the Catholic Church and the presence of God in the sacraments. Okay? So as a Roman Catholic priest ordained for 33 years, who is well-schooled and convinced of and excited about the teaching of the Catholic Church and the presence of God in the sacraments. So that's number 1 and 2. See what I'm saying? Okay. My point is, I am thoroughly convinced that God is alive in our midst and has come to take our hands on the human journey. That's my most precious belief in our Catholic faith. God has come to dwell among us and has taken us by the hand to walk with us on the human journey. That's my point. I am wanting to share this with the parents of our confirmation kids because I think they might see that importance of God's presence also in their lives. And that might give them hope in their daily life. Many of you have been listening to me preach now for about 8 years. That's really my homily every Sunday. I only got one story at a time. And that's it. I'm a Catholic priest. I'm your pastor. And I have been really convinced of the truth of the Catholic Church and the power and the presence of God in the sacraments of the Catholic Church. And I believe God has made his dwelling place among us, taken us by the hand, and walked through us life's journey. And I want to share it with you because I believe that you might see it too, and that's going to make all the difference in your lives. It's going to give you hope. It's going to give you courage. It's going to give you strength. It's going to give you consolation. That's a personal faith statement. And you can make one the same. So, putting yourself in the person of, I'm in conversation with my teenager. How can I identify myself in relationship to God and the church? Listen, honey, I'm imperfect, a sinner. I try to do the best I can. I love God, and I try to be faithful to the church because I really believe in God and our faith. And I am convinced that I want to spend eternity with you in heaven. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because you are about to make your confirmation. And this is why it's important to me that you make your confirmation. Because I love you. You're my everything. And I want to spend eternity with you. I know you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But God loves us. And God will bring us all safely home. Okay? Look over those so that you have a paragraph describing your personal faith statement. And take a chance of composing your faith statement. Write it down. Put it in your Bible. Put it in your prayer book. Put it in your sock drawer. Put it in your papers where you put the 401k and the life insurance policy and the funeral home. I don't know if people talk that way now. My people always did. You know? Maybe put it in nice calligraphy on your laptop. Come up with what is the most important thing about your faith in the Catholic Church, and why would you care to share it with your teenager? That's important. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. These folks have helped us to understand that if we are not sharing our faith with our children, then everything else that we are doing for them religiously is not likely to produce believing, practicing Christians, that they can take up their job as Christian mother and father. So my question for you is, or not my question, but my conclusion again for you is, what do you want? What do you want for your children as they turn 25, as they turn 50? They'll always be your kids, but what's the most important thing? What is the priority that you have for them? And could faith sharing in the Catholic home be an effective vehicle for producing loving, kind, and generous Catholic men and women for the church and the world? So that's my hope. That's the point of this study that has been, I found it so helpful. And it is the point that we are hoping to employ. It's the strategy we're hoping to employ so that we can make a difference in the next generation. We can make a difference in the next generation so that they are not simply obedient sheep doing what they're told, following the laws of the church. You know, that's not working, right? 25% of Catholics are practicing their faith. And I'm presuming the majority of you are among them. So how could we turn the next generation into people who not only are practicing their faith, but actually benefiting from their faith? That's what I'm hoping. And so I appreciate your attention and your patience this evening. As I said, this is the largest group that I have attempted to share this with. I hope you will take a look at that Catholic faith language, maybe learn something about your Catholic faith. You know, that wheel of all those colors, it is a chorus of voices, and we all make up the church. So I hope you'll look at that and maybe appreciate your own faith. And in appreciating it, you might take the chance to construct your personal faith statement. And if it's ever convenient, or maybe if it's not convenient, whenever you have the opportunity, take the risk of sharing that with your children. They are not going to get it from me, but they for sure are listening to get it from you.